A major reason why I believe that education is going to become more software driven is that when you think about it, work or value adding is all about taking input, whether it's information or raw materials, and you're processing, transforming that input into an output that is of higher quality, right? So that is really the goal of education. The goal of education is not to put knowledge into students' heads and giving them an exam to make sure that they have memorized the knowledge or the formulas or the techniques. That's not really the goal of education. The goal of education is to actually enable students to do something, to take raw information and transform it into higher value information or higher value products. So if that's the case, then software is perfect as a tool, as a model, as a framework, as a paradigm for helping students to learn. So let's take a practical example. I could spend 15 weeks explaining to students how to do email marketing. Or I could give them a piece of software and they just enter information from their employer, from their client, and the software will do the information processing automatically and they will get results. They will get higher value information after 1 second, because that's the time that it takes for software to operate. 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds, and in 1,000 milliseconds, it's more than enough time for the software program to run through the raw information and transform it into higher value information. That's ultimately the goal of education, especially when it comes to digital marketing. Whether it's creating a website, whether it's creating a social media campaign, whether it's creating videos on TikTok, on YouTube, whether it's creating a webinar, whatever digital marketing task that you have to do, I would wager that 90% or more of that task can be done by a software program. And therefore, I think that the role of teachers in the future is not to transfer information, because with Google and YouTube, students have access to all the information. The new role of the teacher is to facilitate this process where students can learn with the software, can hack into the software, hack in a good sense of the word. So the teacher becomes like a facilitator of software usage. And I know this is really hard to believe, especially if you've been teaching for a number of years or if you've been a student for a number of years. But this is the future. The future is not for human beings to do the hard intellectual work of information processing. Our brains are not wired to do that. Our brains are wired to recognize patterns, not to do the intensive information processing. So I think the future of education is where classrooms and teachers and students gather around a piece of software that is like a mini brain, and they learn how to use that software in order to produce results. Human beings will no longer be at the center of the work process or the value creation process. And we don't have to be at the center. In the same way that, if you wanted to move from point A to point B, you don't have to be the one walking, especially if it's 1 mile, right? If you want to move from point A to point B, you hop into a car and you drive the car, or a bicycle, or you take the train, or you take the plane. So in every other area of life, we're using technology and technological tools to be more efficient. But how come in terms of education and the educational system, how come we're not using tools to get from point A to point B in the classroom? How come we're still using the brain of the teacher and the brains of students to do a task that can be done much more efficiently, much more accurately, and 1,000 times faster by a software program? So that's my argument in this video. I want you to understand that in the future, work is going to be done by software, by artificial intelligence, and human beings, workers, professionals, entrepreneurs, freelancers, and students, their only job will be to supervise this process where software and AI will do the hard work and we can just relax and have a drink and supervise the work done by software and AI.